In this tutorial, you will learn how to construct shapes using parallel and perpendicular lines. First, you'll construct a right triangle by using the perpendicular line command to ensure that one angle of the triangle measures 90 degrees. Next, you'll construct a parallelogram using two pairs of parallel lines. Finally, you'll explore a sample sketch that comes with Sketchpad. You'll use the drag test and the information tool to identify the different types of triangles, quadrilaterals, and other polygons in the sketch. First, I'm going to construct a right triangle. I'll choose File, New Sketch to get a blank sketch. Then I'll choose the Segment tool to start making my right triangle. I can make a segment in one of two ways. I can click, drag, and release, or I can click, move the mouse, and click again. I'll just get rid of this second segment by choosing the arrow tool and drawing a selection rectangle around the segment and choosing Edit, Cut. So now I have my segment, and I'd like to make sure that my triangle has a right angle, and the way that I'll do that is to construct a perpendicular line through one endpoint. But if I go to the Construct menu, right now the perpendicular line command is grayed out. I can't choose it. I have to tell Sketchpad where to put the perpendicular line. So I'm going to make the perpendicular line through this point, so I'll select that. And it needs to be perpendicular to this segment, so I'll select that. Then when I choose Construct, I can choose Perpendicular Line. And notice now that when I drag anything, the line does stay perpendicular to my segment. So next I need to construct a point on this line to make my triangle. So I'll choose the Point tool, and I'll move over the line and wait until it's highlighted, and I'll click to place the point. And then I'll choose the arrow tool, and I'll drag this point to make sure that it stays on the line, and you see that it does. So next I'll choose the segment tool, and I'll construct the other two segments that make my triangle. And there I have my right triangle. But to finish it, I'll use the polygon tool, so I'll choose the polygon tool, and I'll click on the three vertices of my triangle, and then I'll click on the first vertex again to finish the triangle. And there. And now I'll choose the arrow tool, and I'll select the line, and I'll choose Display Hide Perpendicular Line, because I don't really need to see it anymore now that I have my triangle. So now I'd like to make sure that my construction stays a right triangle, always, no matter what I drag. By dragging each part of my triangle and seeing that it maintains its properties, that it stays a triangle, and that it has one right angle, I'm using what we call the drag test to make sure that this triangle is always a right triangle, and not just a right triangle sometimes. This is very important in mathematics, to make sure that our construction keeps its properties no matter what we drag. And my triangle does. If yours doesn't, undo and do whatever you did over again, making sure that the proper things are highlighted when you place your points and so on. Once your triangle does pass the drag test, I'm going to move on, and to move on, I'm going to add a blank page to my sketch. So I'll choose File, Document Options, and I'll choose Add Page, and then Blank Page. And I'll click OK. So now, on my new page, I'm going to construct a parallelogram. First I'll choose the Segment tool, and I'll just construct two segments, making sure that when I construct the second segment, the endpoint of the first segment is highlighted so that the two segments will be connected. So there, I have two segments. And now, to get the other part of my parallelogram, I want to construct two parallel lines. One of them will be parallel to the bottom segment, and the other one will be parallel to the side segment. So, as with the perpendicular line, I need to tell Sketchpad two things to make a parallel line. First of all, what it will be parallel to, so I'll select the segment, and then what point it will go through, so I'll select this point. And I'll choose Construct Parallel Line. So you see that I get a line parallel to this segment, and if I drag the different points, I see that it stays parallel no matter what I drag. Now I'll make my other parallel line. I'll choose this segment and this point and choose Construct Parallel Line. So now I have the shape of my parallelogram, but not all four segments. So first I will choose the point tool, and I'll move it over the intersection of the two lines and click to place that point. And then I'll choose the polygon tool, but I'll press and hold it so I see that there are three tools, and I'll choose the second one, which is the polygon and edges tool. And then I'll click on all four vertices of my parallelogram in order, and I'll finish on the first one again. And you can tell by the fact that the lines become dashed that I've created four segments. So now I don't need to see the lines anymore, so I'll select them and choose Display, Hide Parallel Lines. And I'll drag everything on my parallelogram to make sure that it passes the drag test. If yours doesn't, undo and redo to make sure that you have a proper parallelogram. So finally, I'm going to look at one of the many sample sketches that comes with Sketchpad. I'll choose Help, Sample Sketches and Tools, and then I'll choose Geometry by double-clicking it, and then I'll open Properties of Shapes. So this document has 3 pages, which I can navigate by clicking the tabs at the bottom: Triangles, Quadrilaterals, and Polygons. So I'll go back to the Triangles page, and each of these triangles looks like it has 2 congruent sides, but some of them are just dragged to be that way right now, and some of them always have 2 congruent sides. So I'm going to use the drag test to figure out which is which. And I'll leave it to you to figure out which of these triangles is always isosceles and which ones are not. And then, if you like, you can identify each triangle by its most specific name. Which triangle is isosceles, which triangle is a right triangle, which triangle is equilateral, and so on. So, as you've seen, one way to do this is just with the drag test, to drag things around and observe their behavior, which is a perfectly good way to do it. But in Sketchpad there are other ways you can do this, and one way is by choosing the Information tool. Here's the Information tool, and then I'll just click with the Information tool on anything in the sketch to learn about its properties. So I'll click this point, and I see that it says that point C, this point, is a point on circle AB. And then when I roll over circle AB, you see the circle, even though it's hidden. And if I clicked circle AB, it shows me the information bubble for that circle that says it's hidden, which we knew, and it is centered at point A and passes through point B. So if you remember from the last tutorial, clearly this triangle was constructed to be isosceles. And so you can keep using the Information tool to discover different properties of the objects in the sketch. Next I'll go to the Quadrilaterals page, and I'll leave it up to you to use the drag test and the Information tool to figure out which of these is a square and which of these are just pretending to be squares.